All right, so welcome to your first success session of the year. We're about halfway through. Well, we're over halfway through the semester, and you're getting to halfway through your 6 semesters with us. I don't know if that went fast or not, but it feels like you guys were just in our seminar class yesterday, not a whole year ago. So it's time to kind of start clarifying the plans and making them a little bit more solid, or getting a plan if you didn't have one. And that's the main thing of what today is. And then a little bit of some refresher on stuff just going into registration. Why don't I get to the agenda that I'm talking about? So we'll talk about, again, as always, pretty much every time we see you, encouraging you to keep pushing in your classes, and to talk about what happens if you're not doing well. We'll plan for the future. So the near is that you are finishing 12th grade this year. Everyone is. And so you would need to finish your high school graduation requirements. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about your progress towards your SC4 degree, placing into English and math if you haven't already, starting to think about after SC4. And then specifically kind of just a refresher on prepping for registration. And then everyone has to update their education development plan, their EDP. And we'll look at that real briefly, and then I'll send you that link and probably put it in the chat as well. Sorry, keep having joiners, which is great. All right. So, geez Louise, I can't get that to it. Okay, important dates. So, if hopefully you were aware that early alert grades were posted Monday, October 2nd, which was over 3 weeks ago. Just a reminder that is basically like a progress report. So there were some people that had pretty low grades and kind of started to panic, like it was too late to do anything about it. It is not. It probably still isn't. You have until December 1st to withdraw. So that's plenty of time. We'll talk a little bit about that. There's plenty of time, over a month, where you can see what kind of impact you can have on your grade. The winter sections are viewable, and we'll point that out, but I probably won't go very deep into how to search, how to register, how to decide what classes, since we've done that a couple of times now. And there are lots of videos on our website that I will point you to. So if you need a refresher, you can access those. And if you still have questions, you can meet with one of us. Registration opens next Monday. So as you know, the Sunday night at midnight. If you want to stay up or get up in the middle of the night, I don't think it's necessary. But I know that people do that. Finals week is December 11th through 15th. So that means the semester ends December 15th, and then textbooks are due that Friday. And then actually, I should include it here that your grades will be posted the following Monday. So by the time final grades are posted, that's when it's too late to do anything about it. So if you have any questions, you're looking on your Canvas, things aren't what you expect, the time is now to start talking to your instructor about that. If you don't get your textbooks in by the deadline, there will be late fees, so make sure you get those in. Everything gets very hectic at the holidays. I know almost every time I talk to somebody that ends up with a late fee or couldn't get their books in on time, you expected to do it a certain day, and then your parents or somebody had other plans for you that day, or a car breaks down. So just drop them off when you come in for your last final. And then it's a nice relief that the semester is over and you're on break for a nice long 3 weeks, I think you get. It is currently college month. So October in Michigan, it's a statewide thing that they call it Michigan College Month. So most of you, probably everyone that's attending one of the partner high schools, have been getting lots of information from your college advisors there and your counselors, and you're probably being encouraged, and some schools actually require you to apply for a college or apply for FAFSA. You will have to remind them that you are a Blue Water Middle College student and don't need to do that until next year. And remind yourself that too. We have had some students start talking and thinking about leaving early. And there's things to keep in mind if you do that. first and foremost, contact one of us. Let us know, give us a heads up so that we can share information with you that we just aren't sharing yet because you don't need to do it yet. Sometimes it's easy to get swept up, like your classmates are doing it. I remember being basically your age, and I was already planning that I was going to stay at SC4 for a year. And I was starting to feel like, oh, maybe I should just go. Like everyone seems so excited about it. And I definitely remember the feeling of like missing out, FOMO. And that's not a feeling I get very often. So that was a moment where I really had to be like, no, I have this plan. It's for the best. I need to save money. You have a full year of free college credit awaiting you in your 13th year. And there's not very many scholarships you can get that will beat that. So there are people that will pursue things, do applications, do the FAFSA, see what's out there. I know there's people that are maybe pursuing athletic scholarships or have maybe already heard that they've gotten the Hale scholarship, the big free ride scholarship from Michigan, but those things will still be waiting for you after 13th year. Maybe not the athletic though, but all of that, just let us know if you are thinking about it. If you are going to go start doing stuff, and I know in the in-person session, I came across a couple people that have, when you are applying, this is the big thing, is that you are applying as a Blue Water Middle College student. We are your high school. Blue Water Middle College is your high school. You chose that when you joined the Blue Water Middle College, and we haven't maybe talked as explicitly as we should have, because I'm seeing a huge increase in the amount of confusion among the 12th and 13th year students. But Port Huron Northern is not your high school. You are a guest there. Blue Water Middle College is your high school, and we are the ones that should be listed on your applications, not Port Huron Northern or whatever your home high school is. And we are the ones that would send your transcript. So that's why it's really important. There's a whole slew of consequences that happen if you were to fill that out wrong. Starting with kind of on the easier end is just, it creates a little bit of a paperwork nightmare for the college, and the admissions person will reach out to you and be like, hey, what is this? What's going on here? But sometimes it creates a whole mess that you actually have to redo your application. And I've been working with a lot of students who are in this situation right now. And oftentimes when people have messed up, their inclination is to lash out or feel like somebody didn't tell them. But this is something that we have been talking about all along. Blue Water Middle College is your high school. Another thing that we haven't really mentioned is that when you apply for four-year schools, you are applying as a freshman. So not as a transfer, although that's what seems like logically that it should be, because you're going to have 2 years worth of college done. And so that seems like I am transferring all of this credit from a community college to a four-year school. But colleges in Michigan have all let us know they want students to apply as freshmen, because if you have not completed a college class after high school graduation, that's what they consider you. And they are well aware of middle colleges and the whole 13th year thing, and they still feel that way. It's to your benefit, because that makes you eligible for freshman scholarships, and there's just a bigger pool of money out there for that. So all of that, if you are going to think about it, let us know. Blue Water Middle College is your high school. Apply as a freshman, but let us know. Time to lean in. So, okay, so the current is that you are in this semester, and it's time to start thinking about your degree progress. So about half of our students earn their associate degree on time, which would mean the end of the 13th year. So that's pretty low. Most students, when I do, every summer, I do a review of everyone's progress towards their associate degree in that time between your 12th grade and 13th year. So next summer, I'll do that review. And at that time, about 80% are on track to get their degree. So things happen, and a lot of it happens in your 13th year. Another percentage earn a degree within a year after that. And that's usually most people, if they get off track, it's because maybe they had to withdraw a class that they weren't expecting. Or sometimes people start off on a very specific path. I have a student that I'm working with that's was doing a computer degree, has a whole bunch of CIS classes that just work as electives for most of the other degrees. And he's switching to a more general the Associate of Arts now. So if you don't want to be in this percentage that doesn't get it, that's where we need to start thinking about why that happens. So the students that don't get, like I just touched on, you might change your program midway. Sometimes students get really hung up on, I'm not going to get my degree. Maybe I shouldn't switch. Maybe I should just finish this. And I get it. I was the same way. I changed my major a lot. And what I ended up settling on for my bachelor's degree, I am not doing right now. It's supply chain management. So I get the idea of like, I just have to finish something and I'll figure it out. And that might be true. A lot of degrees, you can have a degree in supply chain management and end up in education. Like you can find your way to a path that works for you. But right now, you haven't put in a dime towards an associate degree. And there's lots of things that you can do to switch from a more specific to a more general and still get an associate degree done. So I think it's worth doing. Some people are working on bachelor's degrees that they're just doing prerequisites that will transfer to the four-year school. Stuff like there's some art schools where there's just a really specific list of things that transfer and they don't really care about the Michigan transfer agreement or a lot of those general education classes. Those are very, very rare though, and don't just assume that you're in that boat, because most of the time when I look at the transfer information, I can find a whole list of stuff that you could do that would finish a degree here and also transfer on for your bachelor's degree. But most of the time, when people don't earn it, it's because they have failed or withdrawn from classes. And most of the times, it's just because they haven't put in the work or there's not really a very good reason. 80% of students who earned a degree withdrew from 0 classes. So that's a big thing. There is some wiggle room in some of the degrees where you could withdraw from 1 class, but when people withdraw from 1, statistically, they're exponentially more likely to withdraw from a second one because it's so easy, right? Like you struggled, it went poorly, things weren't going well for whatever reason, the content was too hard, you didn't really understand how the teacher was teaching, you maybe just didn't put enough work in, and then at the end of it, it doesn't impact your GPA. So that is a very tempting thing that once you do that, it's hard not to do it again, right? So just try not to do it the first time so that it doesn't become an issue. So don't withdraw, earn your degree. It is totally possible to pass. A D- is still passing. The majority of our grades end up to be pretty good. 85% are a C- or better. But a C or better is what you want to shoot for in order for it to transfer. But a D- can still count for general credit. It can count as an elective. So like, let's say you took bio 120 and it's not going well, and ultimately you get a D- and don't end up getting that C for it to transfer. Depends on what you're doing next. Maybe you don't need that. That was just a science to check off a requirement. Or maybe it is something that you need for your 4-year degree, and then it makes sense to retake that. Those are the things where if you're struggling, let us know, we can help you figure it out. But a D- still passes and will allow you to finish your degree on time. If you are thinking about withdrawing, again, contact one of us immediately. I've been seeing just a huge influx of people that are coming in and they're weeks into struggling on a variety of things, not knowing what to take, not knowing how the whole transfer thing works, not doing well in their classes, and waiting too long to ask somebody for help. And so then it does sometimes become too late for us to do anything or give you advice, help you get back on track. Those are the things where I really, really cannot stress enough. Contact us as soon as you are having a question or a problem. We might not be able to get you in the office right away tomorrow because it's a really busy time, but we'll get you in as soon as possible and get you some answers to help you figure it out in the meantime. You would need to fill out a withdraw permission form if you want to do that. There's a whole list of things that we want you to do before we would approve you to withdraw. But another thing that we have seen through the years is sometimes people are like, whatever, I'm just going to stop going. I know I'm going to have to deal with it later. I'll just send them the form later. I'll ask for the form later. Don't just quit. You're going to have to prove that you have been trying. So that's word of advice. Again, just reach out when you are having trouble and we'll help you figure it out. There's tutoring. The SC4 tutoring There's quite a few tutors, more than there have been for the last few years. Their schedules are very dynamic. They change a lot because there are other students that are taking classes and have a life and might have another job and things come up. So the most current way to find a tutor would be to just go to sc4.edu/tutoring, or to go into the library and ask where the tutoring is. There's a little center right in there where somebody's set up. There's usually somebody that can help with most subjects. If you have kind of a higher level math, science, English, there's the math center that can help with a lot of that. There's the English writing center that can help with that. And then there's specific tutors that can help in pretty much all of the high level science. They just might have a little bit of a trickier schedule to work around, but there is help there. So don't just bury your head in the sand and think no one can help you. Okay, so the planning initially, the main thing is your high school commencement. So are you on track to walk this spring? So if you recall, your high schools allow you to participate in all of this in graduation, in prom, all of this stuff at the end of your 12th grade year. But just like your classmates, they want you to have all the requirements complete. So that's that whole list of 4 English, 4 math, that whole deal. Mrs. Barr sent you a letter last summer telling you what you have left for your high school requirements and kind of made a note of what can work for each. Hopefully, I think it seems like almost everybody is doing what they need to do to be on track. But if you are struggling in a class, either at the college or the high school, that's counting for your high school requirement, you need to let Mrs. Barr know so she can help you figure out a solution. If there's anything outstanding, you still have a whole semester here at the college. You have winter semester to be able to take a class for any remaining requirements that you have. Typically, we don't normally suggest that people would take college classes to complete high school requirements, just because that does put a lot of pressure on being able to stay on track. And your college instructors, as you know, put more of the responsibility in your hands versus them bugging you like your high school teachers do. Both Mrs. Barr and I were high school teachers previously, so we are fully aware of, hey, what's going on with that missing work? When are you going to get it in? Sure, maybe I'll figure out some extra credit. The college instructors don't operate that way. They are not invested and they are not required to get you a high school diploma. Your high school teachers are, so they're going to work with you. So that's why I always would just tell people, do your high school stuff at the high school. But if you have it left, if something has happened and you need a solution, a college class might be that. But all of you should be aware or should contact Mrs. Barr if you're not sure, or try to find that letter and just let us know if you have questions. One remaining requirement that you'll have after this year. So you're still going to do your 4 credits of math. You have to have your 4th credit done by now or this year. But next year you are going to have to take a math related class. Basically, that list of the requirements for English, for math, the social studies, science, that whole deal. The state requires students to take 4 credits of math, but then they add this extra little wording that you have to complete a math-related course, math-related experience in your final year of high school. It's very vague, and even as a math teacher, I feel like it's maybe a silly requirement, but there are easy solutions for you to do that. Basically, if you have held off your math for your college degree, like for your associate degree, you could just wait and do that in your 13th year. I would recommend doing it in the fall. And if you have finished your math already for your degree, or you are kind of on a track where you will finish it maybe in the winter semester, there's a ton of other stuff that can work. There's business classes that can work, accounting, economics. There's a bunch of science, not just physics, which might scare a lot of people, but stuff like astronomy, chemistry can work, electronic stuff. There's a ton of things. There's also just a class called Business 199, which is personal finance at SC4. That's actually super easy and also a really helpful class to your life. It would be a good thing for any of us to learn about. So check and see, kind of look at what you have left for your SC4 math requirement and see if you can hold that off until 13th year, or reach out to either Mrs. Barr or me if you're looking for ideas on what to take. If you are taking, or if you're pursuing a path where you're going to need more math, just keep rolling. do what you need to do, but don't wait to take a math if you know you're going to need a few math classes. Like if you're going into engineering, you should already be doing math and you'll be doing a lot of math pretty much for the rest of your life, but for definitely the rest of your semesters here. Okay, so then planning for your SC4 degree, the important thing is knowing which one are you pursuing, and hopefully everybody kind of has a good handle on that by now. But I'm getting definitely an increase in people asking, am I doing the right degree, or I've changed my mind? How can I move from this degree to that degree? If you can see in your SC4 service center, when you go into schedule, you can see which degree you're listed as pursuing. And if that doesn't match what you want to do, let me know. If you know right now that like, oh, when I signed up, I thought I would do arts, but I want to switch to science. That's very easy. I can just email the SC4 advisors and they can change it for us. But if you want to talk about like, I just don't really know if this is the right path for me and you want to kind of talk it through, that's what we're here for. You are about 6 classes or about 20 credits in by the end of this semester. So that's about a third of the way through your degree. At a minimum, you would need to have at least 26 credits complete by the end of this year. So the end of winter semester, in order to finish on time in your 13th year, because in this 13th year, we can pay for up to 17 credits each semester. So that means over the 13th year, we can pay for 34 credits. Most of the degrees are 60 credits. 60 minus 34 is 26. So that's why that's a minimum to shoot for. But ideally, if you can shoot for having 30 credits done by the end of 12th grade, that puts you on track to do 15 credits each semester, your 13th year, which is a very doable schedule. That's actually the common schedule. You will have, again, about 40 more credits to go. So that's a lot of time to fit in requirements, check and see about transferability. If you have ideas about where you want to go and what you want to do, you can start choosing your classes based on what your bachelor's degree would want you to have. And it's a lot of time left to impact your GPA as well. But it is time to make those plans and kind of keep working towards them. So we have all of that paperwork and templates. I think I'll pop over and look at that stuff now. So all of the SC4 worksheets and degrees are listed on a couple different websites. So we have the one that's listed here, this tiny URL, and all of these links I will include in a follow-up email to you when this is over. Well, probably tomorrow morning, I'll send that. So your degrees are listed here. So if you're doing the arts science, those worksheets that we have on our page are probably the easier things. Mrs. Barr made a great worksheet. The SC4 people have actually stolen it in some cases and use it with their students. The rest, there's such a specific list of classes that it's best to just go to the source, the SC4 site, and look at the list. So if you recall, we've looked at this already, but this is nice because you can click here and see like, okay, I know I have to fit in Econ 221, read the description, check the prerequisite. That's important to be keeping a track of right now. This particular class, you have to have 20 credits complete and whatever math level that you're at. So yes, so that's an easy way to kind of like check on the classes, but you can also click the little printer and print that out really nicely, and we can print anything for you as well. So anything that we link to or anything that you need printed, you're always welcome to stop in the office and we can get that for you. The other page that has a lot of stuff is Mrs. Barr and Mr. Stewart have really been working on getting a lot of stuff on our website. So under the students tab, there's a few important tabs that are really helpful as you're planning out the rest of your degree, getting ready for registration, all of that stuff. So planning and scheduling is where you can see all the documents that you would need. So the arts, science, general education worksheets. If you've taken an AP course and you want to know what class you would get, that's there. The math pathway has changed a little bit, and I will touch on that in a second. The program of study, this worksheet I use all the time with students. I think it's really helpful to start mapping out what you have left, especially, this is actually an old version that I'm going to see if Mr. Stewart can change. But I can give you the one that is more like what we were just looking at here without this mess down below. So that's a really helpful tool. Oh, geez, sorry, getting lost in the tabs. There's information about the Michigan Transfer Agreement and the course changes, which I'll also talk about in a second. There's videos that Mrs. Barr made. This first one is kind of an overview of the degrees and kind of a little glimpse into how to work on an applied degree. So something like criminal justice or a computer degree, something specific like that. And then there's videos that are just about the arts degree where she gets really detailed in reviewing kind of how to map all that out. And then another one about the science degree. So those are wonderful there. The other thing that's really helpful, SC4 registration has a step-by-step review of what you do. So if you need some help on that, that's there. There's also under the AccuPlacer information on how to schedule that. And then Mrs. Barr has a video of how to sign up for that as well. And I will include a sheet that has some recommendations of how to prepare for that. So there's a ton of resources out there. They're on the website. I'll link to them in the email that we're sending. But you have all the tools and can probably figure it out on your own. A lot of people do. But again, if you have questions, let us know. So English and math placement, it is getting closer to the time where I would say it is time to jump into English and math. I'm always kind of a Scrooge about telling people not to do it right off the bat in their first few semesters, but you could start in this coming semester or next year. So in the Service Center, you can see your test summary, and I'll just pop over there and show you that. We're doing pretty okay with time. So I have the Service Center bookmarked. If you don't, you might want to. And I'm just going to show you from my account. So you pretty much would go to student planning. And then up here, under academics, you would click on test summary. And it's going to list what's there, what you have submitted to SC4. So admission tests, that's where the SAT would be. So if you have not sent your SAT scores to SC4, like if you didn't include SC4 as one of the colleges to have them sent to, that's why those are not there. You can send them to SC4. And basically you would just in College Board, you would go to your College Board, log in under your account, and there's a little button that says, I think it's like view or download my score report. You would download that, save it as a PDF, and email it to me or Mrs. Barr, and then we can pass it on to SC4 and they can get those loaded in there. If you have questions, if you want to, send us your PDF and we can tell you, oh yeah, that places you into Math 1120 or whatever it is that you're looking to place into. We can let you know if that works. If you took the AccuPlacer, that would be listed under placement test here. So you can see I took the olden version of it, the College Board, but yours would say AccuPlacer and it would list your scores. That's usually one of the things that drives me crazy is I wish they would tell you based on your score what class you're able to take, but you can ask us and we can tell you that as well. So if you haven't placed where you need to from your SAT or the AccuPlacer, you would need to either take the AccuPlacer for the first time or retake it. The AccuPlacer you would take at the testing center. You would sign up right at the link sc4.edu/testing. And I don't think I did have that open. So right at the top, you can see a button that says click here to schedule a test. You would click that and just follow the prompts and you would set up an appointment to do that. They have some good links as far as how to prepare, but they have told us in the past, they recommend that students use Khan Academy to study for the math test. There's some other links here under the AccuPlacer tab, but again, I will send that to you in the follow-up email. So And then Mrs. Barr has a video talking about all this as well. So basically take the AccuPlacer or submit your SAT scores. You can do both, see where that gets you. And then potentially, if you're not placed where you want to be, you can retake the AccuPlacer or potentially the SAT. Worst, or kind of last case, if you're really looking to take something in the winter, you could reach out to the instructor and ask for them to override the prerequisites, but they are moving away from allowing that because they're really trying to push people to actually take the AccuPlacer and show that they have placed into it. Another opportunity that will be available after this year is over. So you can use your high school math grades in order to place into a math class, but they will not let you do that until you have completed your senior year. So that would be a complete last resort if you have gotten a B or higher and have a 3.0 GPA in both your high school GPA and your college GPA. So those are pretty high requirements, and that would have to be a B in your last class in order to place into like the next one. So again, they don't let you do that until after second semester grades are in. So that would be mid-June for most of you that you won't get that. So that would be like, if nothing else works. So it really is time to kind of try these other things and see where that gets you. Speaking of math, SC4 changed all their course numbers. I'm pretty sure that we knew this before we talked to you for the last time last spring when we had the success session in March. So this is just kind of a refresher. They haven't changed the courses. They've just really changed the names, or not even the names, just the course numbers. But they have added some new courses available that are basically like the general normal class, regular class with support. We'll talk about that. If you've already taken Math 104 or 113 or 120 before they made this change, that still counts towards your degrees as the new ones will. But if you have not, then you would have to take these new numbers. So if you're planning, like you already knew, I know that I want to take pre-calculus, that's Math 113. That is now just Math 1130. So it's just as simple as a different name, and it's still, you can just place into it the same way, AccuPlacer, SAT. The other things that they've added are with Math 104, that's now Math 1100, or they have Foundations of Math with Support, which is Math 1101. They've added a with support for statistics and a with support for intermediate algebra. So this is I'll send you this as well, just so you can see kind of what all the numbers are, but this is where this is more helpful. And I'll also send it to you to say like, okay, I'm doing the Associate of Arts. These are kind of our final spots where we can get to 1100 or 1101, 1120 or 1121 or 1130. Those would be the options for classes that can complete the math requirement for that degree. Foundations of Math, the math department has told us this was initially created with the idea to give people an option for an easier math class. So they actually in the course catalog describe it as a math course for non-math majors, which is a nice way of saying math for people that are just trying to get through it. But we've actually heard that it's not that much easier, and people have actually been having more success in the statistics class. So if that's something that you're worried about, come and talk to us and we can kind of talk through what classes did you like, what struggles have you had in math. I'd probably be a good person to talk to about that. And I can give you some suggestions based on your experience and kind of what you're looking to get out of it. But you would want to know, this is another case where it would be really ideal to know what you want to do for a career and some ideas about where you want to transfer to, what you want to major in, because there are some math requirements on things that you wouldn't necessarily expect. So for example, business is one where a lot of schools are requiring both pre-calculus and statistics. A couple schools even include or require calculus. So if that's what you're thinking about doing, then it would be helpful to get as much of that done now as you can while you have the support of us at home, the whole deal. and smaller class sizes. The associative science is just 11:20, 21 statistics, or 11:30 pre-calculus. That does not have the foundations of math option. And this shows you kind of the different paths to it. You can place right into your final course, or if you don't, if you place a little bit lower into one of these classes, you may have to take 2 or 3 classes to get it all done. And again, this is just, depends how much you want to stretch it out. If you know that you need a lot of help, you might want to stretch it out so that you kind of are getting a little bit more of a foundation. Another way, if you know that you're going to need a lot of help, is to try one of these courses with support. So the 11:01 would finish the associative arts math. 11:21 would finish both the arts and the science. 10:11 would be a good prerequisite for later stuff. So all of these are 4-credit classes. That's what will show up on your transcript. But there are 6 contact hours. So that means you're basically there. That's your class time per week. So that means you're there 6 hours per week. Your regular versions of these, 4 credits are 4 contact hours. It means you're there 4 hours a week. So what that means is they're building in 2 hours a week for the support piece. And so that means basically they're going to spend most of their time talking about the statistics, for example, in this class. But then they're going to have built-in lab time, basically, where you're going to be with the instructor getting help on those previous topics that are covered in what you're doing right now. So for example, there might be something, I can't even think of a topic in statistics, but there might be a new topic that you're going to learn about. And then he's like, well, you remember how to do equations, or I can't even think the word. I used to teach math. That's embarrassing. But you remember how to do this from algebra. And that's when you're like, no, that's why I'm in the support class. That's what they're going to cover in the labs. Goodness gracious. It's late. I'm going to call it that I can't remember a single topic from algebra. So these will transfer the same as the standalone class. It will show up as Introduction to Statistics. That's just going to be added with support, but it will still transfer just like the 11:20 Intro to Statistics. You can also place right into that. So I don't know if I said that, but all of these with support, you still need to take the AccuPlacer, but these do not have prerequisites. So I would recommend taking the AccuPlacer and see how it goes, but you can register for any of these 3 with any score on the math AccuPlacer. So these can be an option if you want to just jump in, get started, or potentially with 11:01 or 11:21 finish your math requirement. So again, the pro is that you have the time built into your schedule where you have actually the instructor for help, not having to go see a tutor, because you have your actual teacher there who's very qualified and hopefully helpful. The downside is just fitting that additional class time into your weekly schedule. And if you were not one of our students, another downside is that they're more expensive, but that's not really your concern because we pay for it. All of these courses have both in-person and online sections available, but I recommend strongly, and I think as a college or as a school, we are recommending to take math classes in person, even if it's your strong suit. It's hard to get help when you need it. It's hard just to kind of know what's going on when you're just watching a video and you can't just ask the instructor a question. But if math is not your strength, if math is something you are worried about, you absolutely should not take it online. Most of the time that people end up struggling from math is because they're in online sections. And often I have heard of instructors saying things that I disagree with. I wish they wouldn't, but I know that I've had at least a couple students ask an online instructor for help and say they're struggling. And the teacher is like, why are you taking this online then if you know that math is not your thing? Which is a valid question, but somewhat rude because it's their job to try to help you figure it out. So I would just avoid it altogether. Take the math in person, make it work. Everyone can make it work. And you may just have to figure it out with your schedule, but I really, really recommend doing it in person. There's also one new English class. So they left the English classes as they are. There's English 101 and there's English 102. Those are required for almost every degree. Definitely the arts and science, definitely the Michigan transfer agreement, and almost every degree at SC4. What they've done is added another option, English 100, which is basically English 101 with support. English 101 and 100 will transfer the same, just like the other ones with support. And you would just take one or the other. So you wouldn't do 100 and then 101 and then 102. You would do 100 or 101 and then 102. So those are another option. For this one, you actually do have to place into it. When you do the AccuPlacer for the writing, you write an essay and it's graded on a scale from 1 to 8. You would need at least a 3 to place into English 100, and you need at least a 5 to place into English 101. So again, if you have questions about any of this, let me know. My email and schedule is very overloaded right now, but I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. It may not actually be in time for registration at this point, but it'll be pretty close to it and sometime in the next week or so. But I will try to get you those answers quickly, especially if it's just a simple, like what English am I placed into, stuff like that. There was a question. Oh, so if you are not placed where you want to be and you know that you want to take a math or English, you don't have to wait to register. Register all your other classes, and you can always add the English and math later on. So I would recommend, don't let this hold you up. Still plan out what you're going to do, register the other stuff, and you can add it as you place into it. We recommend that you should also meet with an SC4 advisor. I would say at least once a year. They're the ones that are really going to vouch for the degree. We're pretty qualified in our office. I think that we can help you figure out your progress towards your degree, what you have left. Basically, we talk about this on the next slide. So we can help you figure out, do you have high school requirements remaining? What can you take for that? Your SC4 degree, college and career research. I can do transfer information. We can help you if you're struggling, but seeing an SC4 advisor is just kind of a second opinion. It's a double check. With the number of students that we have, it would be logical to expect that humans make mistakes. Like I might miss something, you might miss something. I don't miss things very often, but it does happen here and there. So that's why it's really important for you to double check this with SC4 advisors. And I would say about once a year. This could be something that maybe let's come up with a plan. You can register for winter and then maybe just go double check it, especially since you're halfway through at this point. They are on the first floor of the Welcome Center. So when you walk into that building, there's a desk over to your left. You can just stop there and make an appointment, or you can make it online at sc4.edu/advising, or you can call them at 989-5571. Again, you should also be meeting with us. Especially again, there's just a good halfway point right now. It would be a good time to check in and make sure that you're on track, or to talk through whatever your future plans are. And that's actually our next thing. So we are here. If you remember, at least if you were in my seminar, I talked a lot about you can go through this whole program not having a clue what you want to do. And I do have students that I'm meeting with in 13th year who are starting to panic because they still feel that way. But as soon as you have some ideas about what you want to do, that is the time to talk to me and figure out what can transfer. So I'm meeting with some students right now who they actually did know. They had some ideas back in 11th grade, 12th grade, and now they're in their 13th year, like, oh, well, I've kind of run out of requirements to take. Can I see if there's anything that can transfer? And that's great. It's better than never doing it. But there was a list of like 4 science classes that you could have taken. None of them are earth science, but you wasted an earth science on something that's not really going to help you for your bachelor's degree. Doesn't mean that it is a waste because it checks off that requirement. Hopefully it was relatively easy. But if you kind of have some ideas about what you want to do, now is the time to start looking at that stuff. Going back here. So this is kind of an old thing that Mr. Spencer always used to do, and I left it in here. I've always laughed at it, but it's just an idea of the places that our students transfer onto. At this point, I think our students have transferred to pretty much every school in Michigan. Maybe not some of the privates. I think there's still a few of the expensive private schools that students haven't gone to. Almost all of the military branches, and a good number of out-of-state schools. Indiana Wesleyan is a big one that people have transferred to. Other like big public schools, places in Ohio that are close. There's a lot of opportunity there. So things are still transferring, even if you're going out of state. It's just a little bit harder to do that research. But planning right now is where kind of the initial focus is making sure you're completing the Michigan transfer agreement. And then again, looking at what you want to do for your bachelor's degree, if you're going to transfer on and do that, and finding out what you can transfer to the four-year school. The other big priority is trying to keep your grades a C or better and just completing the classes. So again, like we talked about earlier, making sure that you're checking things off. And I already looked at this. So I think that used to be a thing where if I press, I think I took out the animation, but it used to get you from fuzzy to crystal clear. But it is time to kind of start doing that. And if you're still at the point where you're like, oh my gosh, now this is really stressing me out because I still have no idea, there's stuff that we can do to kind of start giving you some focus and helping you figure it out. So if you're at that point, let me know too, and we can set up a time to talk. Planning requires knowing where you want to go. So that would be finding out what you want to do, what kind of degree or education you're going to need after SC4, and then where do you want to go to do that? Those are the things where if you can figure that stuff out, you're golden. And you could always change your mind later, but at least these general things that you're doing while you're doing the basics can be things that could work for that plan if that's what you end up sticking with. And if it doesn't, we can figure out something that they will work for. But it's time to check the stuff out. These are good pages that if you want to do the career research, this is stuff that we all did in seminar. ONET is like a national job database where you can search education required and stuff like that. Big Future is from College Board. And Zello, if you're still at the high school, is actually a really helpful tool. And but College Board, if you don't have Zello, College Board, the Big Future page, it works pretty much the same, where you can search a career, figure out what education, where you can get that bachelor's degree. You can narrow down which schools have that degree. Those are all really helpful. The other thing to be thinking about is making sure your application is going to be strong when you're applying for things a year from now. So you're going to be, because you're applying as a freshman, again, at the college's recommendation or requirement, they're going to look at your high school GPA, your Blue Water Middle College GPA, which has both your high school and your college classes on it. And they're going to look at your SAT score, probably. So a lot of schools are still not requiring it. This is a chart that has been given out the last few years, and it's still pretty accurate, although a couple things have changed. But the high stuff up here is still kind of what it is, that if you're looking at University of Michigan, their average student that they accept has a 3.8 or higher and a 1350 or higher on the SAT. There's kind of this next tier that's like a 3.5. The next tier, maybe a 3.3, 2.8 to 3.3. There is also, I didn't add it. So there's a handful of schools, well, there's 10 schools in Michigan who have come up with this Michigan Assured Admission Pact, which says that if you have a 3.0 or higher on high school GPA, you will be assured admission. So your main priority would be holding if you are above the 3.0 or shooting to get above that 3.0 if you're close. And these 10 schools are saying if you have that, you're just guaranteed admission. You still have to apply and you still, have to hold your GPA, but you can kind of breathe a little bit easier that if you have a 3.0 or above, these 10 schools you're definitely going to get into. These are great safety schools to be considering. A lot of these are great safety schools financially as well. So these are a great time to kind of start with. And you could basically click there on the school, and it will give you more information just kind of about the Michigan Assured Admission map, they're calling it. Just kind of what it is, why we go to Oakland, financial aid, all kinds of stuff that's available. So that is really a helpful thing. So you can see there's some where they're saying, you know, the average is a 3.3. One of them is Oakland. Now they're saying basically a 3.0, you're guaranteed admission. Western is another one. So that's gotten a little bit better. And this is all not to say that if you have a 3.5, you need to throw out the dream for Michigan. That's not accurate. That's not true. It just means you really need to try to kick it up as much as possible for the next 3 semesters. That is a pro to staying for your 13th year, is that it just gives you more time to impact your high school GPA. And you would probably want to think about retaking the SAT. A lot of these schools, even though there's average SAT scores listed, they still maybe are test optional or not requiring the SAT, but sometimes it will help you, right? So if you could retake it, maybe it could offset if you're a little bit lower on the GPA or vice versa. Another thing too to think about is if you're a little bit lower than the average, start thinking about what your story is for when you're doing college essays, because that is a big part of it, especially for these higher tier schools. And especially if you're thinking about any other selective schools, Ivy Leagues, anything like that, you want to really start thinking about building your resume for extracurriculars and kind of starting to generate your story. What makes you unique? What unique qualities do you bring to a college campus? Like, why can they not survive without you? And that's where it's difficult to kind of start thinking about how we brag about ourselves. But your parents can be very good at that. Parents are very good about bragging about you. So they can be a good source to go through of like, okay, what do I even say on an essay? Like, what's awesome about me? So if you need help with that, ask your parents or ask one of us or ask your teachers. But I guarantee there's some people around that can tell you what your awesome stuff is. So I've already touched on this, but you have a ton of control over your GPA. You only have 3 classes on your transcript right now. So you have a lot more to complete. So lots of time to bring it up, or lots of time for it to kind of start getting shaky if you're not keeping focus and priority on your college classes. If you need help, see the tutoring. Retaking the SAT, I highly recommend. It's $60, which I know is, you know, a cost that some people maybe don't want to take on. If financial need is something that you think your family is eligible for, there are fee waivers. So if you have questions about that, you can probably ask me or Mr. Ruiz, and we can help you figure out if you would be eligible for a fee waiver. The tests are offered every couple of months, and you can register at this link, which this will be in the presentation that I send. Like, you'd be able to click right on it from the PDF of this presentation. A good date to shoot for is June 1st, before you forget everything that you learned this year, while you still have all that math and English fresh in your mind. But I know that's also a tough time because there's proms and there's just a lot of stuff going on at that time as you're wrapping up your 12th grade year. So you could also plan to take it. They have test dates usually in August, October, and December in the fall. Any of those 3 would be helpful for applications. August and October would be best because you would have those scores back while you were doing your college applications. But even December can work if you run into something like maybe you get waitlisted, or maybe they say, well, let's wait and see how your fall grades do, and then we'll make the decision in January. Or if you get in, your SAT score can increase your opportunity for scholarships. So there are different grids that the colleges have that are based on your GPA and your SAT score, or just your GPA if you're not using the SAT. But if you can improve your SAT, that can improve your scholarship eligibility. So up until December would be helpful. Anything after that, you would run into basically the priority deadline is March. So you'd be looking at March 2025 is when you would need to apply and do the FAFSA by and get these scores by in order for that to work for your scholarship stuff. Okay, so registration is coming up. You're taking 3 more important classes. So you want to look through your program of study, your degree, figure out what 3 classes you need. Look at transferability if you have some ideas about where to go. And like I said, if you want to talk about it, we can do that. I will include, when I send the follow-up email, links to make appointments with me or Mr. Ruiz. And again, my schedule is almost totally full. It is completely full this week, but I have some stuff next week. And again, you can still register for 3 classes and we could always adjust it later if we find other stuff that can work. The process is the same, that you're doing that in the service center. I pointed out the different videos that help you refresh how to do it. And then we also have, I have a sheet. Oh, I didn't include it as a slide, but I will, where you can look at just, we have this like step-by-step guide. So that can help you figure it out. The videos can. If you still need help, again, you can come in and see one of us, but it's just, we're nearing registration, so it's a little bit harder to get in immediately. You'll still get in, just it might take a second. Just a few things to keep in mind. Adding courses to your plan doesn't mean that you're registered. It basically means it's in your shopping cart. You have not bought that. It's not on the way. It is in your cart. It's in your plan. So you have to go back in and click register when it opens on Monday, and then double check to make sure it goes through. When it goes through, they will color to like a green color and it'll say registered, not yet started, versus when it's in your plan, it says planned and it's in kind of like a beigey yellow color. So definitely double check it. Registration opens Monday, so Sunday night at midnight. I really I don't know, on the in-person session, I asked how many people stay up, and I do see it's getting less and less. And I think that's totally fine. You can do it Monday morning before school. You can do it Monday afternoon after school. Definitely shoot to do it Monday, but by Friday at the latest, and you should be fine. Things will fill up, but usually just in sections that there's a ton of other options. If you're worried about math and English placement and those filling up, those definitely fill up a lot slower, English and math, and high level science. So there's time to get it figured out, but do it sooner than later. Don't schedule a class before noon. So you're pretty aware of that. That was the rule for fall. We do check that. Mrs. Barr will get a report from SC4, but it probably won't be for a couple weeks until after registration opens. It's usually a couple weeks later that we get that first report. So she will reach out if she sees that you're registered for the wrong time, and she will say, you need to fix this or we will drop that. And every semester, there's students that typically you're not here, right? People that are not here are not checking their email and not getting this information. Those are usually the people that make those mistakes. And so pass the word on to your friends that are not here. Like, hey, don't mess it up. Do it noon or later. But we will drop it. And this is not going to the principal and asking for an exception. No exceptions will be made. And it's a safety thing. It's part of our agreement with the high school to keep scheduling easy for the counselors. So that's the plan there. I showed you all of this stuff on our website. So bluewatermiddlecollege.org is our website. Go there, bookmark that if you don't have it on your Chromebook, because you're going to be using these tools and these pages a lot more if you need help. And the last thing is the educational development plan. So EDP, you have to do this every year. If you recall from seminar last year, it's literally just a Google form. It should take you 5 minutes or less. Even if you are thoughtful and take your time with it, it'll take you 5 minutes or less. So I would really recommend doing it right now. And in fact, I am going to put the link in the chat. So your 12th grade, sorry, I have it here. Okay, so in the chat, I'll also be emailing it. Let's see how that comes up. It doesn't, I don't know. We'll see. Hopefully that will work for you guys, but if not, it'll be in the email, or you can just copy that into a browser. But this is basically a requirement. The state requires every student to have one of these on file. You have to update it each year. It is the exact same thing that you did last year. So people are going to do it and say, oh, I already did this. Well, yes, last year, but you have to do a new one. Exactly what I said here. So this has been going on for years, where people say the same things over and over. So that also helps us plan a little bit. And I do touch back with those, but a lot of times I'll just be like, okay, what are you thinking about doing? It's okay if it's not set in stone. Give this your best attempt. If it's not your solid plan that you're going to follow the rest of your life, that is okay. It's just that the state of Michigan wants you guys to have some idea of what you want to do and what it takes to get there. That's it. So it's okay if you have to guess on a couple of things. That is at that link. It is due by not next Friday, November 10th. So that gives you a little over 2 weeks to do that. It is a requirement though. So if you don't do it, we're going to have a whole thing where we might have to meet with you if you have been not completing a lot of stuff. But the fact that you're here is a good thing. So probably not for you guys, but anybody watching this video later. And if you don't do it, we might end up dropping your classes. So that would be a little bit further down the road. We wouldn't be doing it right away, November 10th, but shortly after, and we'll be continuing to bug you if you haven't done it. So keep an eye on your email, like always, and get that done. I would do it right now before you even forget. A few things that it asks you are what colleges and careers you're thinking about. List everything that you are considering. But if you have your one plan, like, I want to go to CMU and I want to do kinesiology because I want to eventually be an occupational therapist, and that's what I want to do, and that hasn't changed, that's totally fine to have that one thing, especially if that's the goal, the plan. If you're making a guess on some ideas, then maybe list multiple ideas. I forgot this pink sheet doesn't exist anymore, and the career pathways have changed. I think it's pretty self-explanatory what pathways match the career you're thinking of, but you can just make your best guess there. And then careers and life goals. If you could give a little bit more than just like, I want to be an occupational therapist, that would be where you could say, I would like to be an occupational therapist because I want to work with kids. That's the field that I want to get into in that area. I want to make a lot of money, and they do. And I want to be able to set my own schedule. That might be possible. Or you might say, I want to be a financial manager. I want to work on Wall Street. I want to make a ton of money, live in a big city, and work-life balance doesn't really matter to me. I want to just make a ton of money. Other people might say, I want to do something fulfilling. I want to be able to get out of work at 5 o'clock and go home to my family and not worry about working late nights or working weekends. So whatever it is, in a couple sentences, just kind of give us your best guess at your plan. Mainly, we're just curious. And then that's basically it. So we are in week 10. I don't know if this week is flying by for you, but it is for me. So keep working hard. You're basically almost 2/3 of the way done with the semester. So not to stress you out, but it is crunch time to step it up, basically. Again, registration opens on Monday the 30th, technically Sunday night. Your EDP is due Friday, November 10th. Finals week is December 11th through 15th, and your textbooks are due December 15th. And then you have a nice long break to look forward to before we come back, and the new semester starts on January 8th. I believe that's it. I'll leave it here. That this is all of our contact information. So if you want to take a quick picture of that or screenshot and reach out to whoever you would like to set up a meeting with if you want to. When I send the follow-up, I'll include the link to, like, I'm doing online scheduling right now. The meeting is still in person, or we could meet on Zoom, but it's just a way for you to check my schedule online and just pick the time that works with your schedule. So, and Mr. Ruiz is also doing that. But both Mrs. Barr and Mr. Stewart are, oh my gosh, also happy to meet with people. You would just need to email them to set up a time. So let me stop recording.